I mean, there is no faffing about for Aston Villa in this January transfer window, with a couple of moves inside a few days that some are calling brilliant and exceptional. Others are saying it's a tad risky, and others still are saying, well, this is very, very out of character for the club and perplexing, frankly. But in acquiring Lucas Digne, you cannot argue a player with high pedigree throughout his career who has consistently provided goals everywhere he's been. And so to celebrate this capture, I'm pulling out a handcrafted French whiskey called Bastille. This is my wife's very favorite. It's dear. It's lovely. Interestingly, this company has changed their recipe a couple of times, and in doing so, changed their flavor profile, which can be a bit risky at times. But in my opinion, it's gotten better. So, à votre santé, Lucas Digne to Aston Villa. Welcome inside the parlor, where things are feeling so optimistic and positive right now, given this signing, recent developments, how fast Aston Villa is getting the business done. It's really interesting how much we've departed from what we did even in the summer and before, which was going after players 21 to 24, 5, high potential. The past two championship players of the year, they had to have good attitudes, low ego, growth mindset, the chance to improve their careers and increase in value, and with a heavy emphasis on statistical and analytic work. Well, now we've signed two players with high international pedigree in their late 20s, who have only sort of struggled just recently. It's as if we've pounced on an opportunity, and I just wonder how much input Steven Gerrard has had in this pivot, because let's be honest, we've done well with Konza, Martinez, and Watkins, bullseyes, all three. There's some questions still about Buendia, Ings, maybe Cash a little bit. We'll see, but do you need statistical or analytic background information to quantify how good Philippe Coutinho or Lucas Digne are? I don't think you do. And just to address the one thing that Everton fans will probably say about Lucas Digne is that defensively he's a liability. Well, yeah, okay, he hasn't featured in Everton's last several games. I think it's been 5 out of the last 9 he's not been part of. But Everton is a shambles right now. It almost looks better on him that he's not in the squad or involved. And they had such a great start, which he was heavily involved in, and now all of a sudden, things have suddenly soured. The defensive side of it, probably a question. But as I said in the last show, if you've shored things up at the other end, is it possible that you're putting less pressure on the defensive side of your game? This pivot in recruitment strategy is so intriguing to me because under Johan Lange and his big team, we've had a way of doing things. And all of a sudden, Steven Gerrard steps in and everything's different. We're going after players in their absolute prime with international pedigree and success under their belt that just so happen to be going through difficult times in their careers. So where does that come from? Because 6 months ago, we were making stink bids for Emile Smith-Rowe and James Ward-Prowse. And we're very closely associated with Yves Bissouma right now, who is also going through a little bit of a difficult time in his career. And he's away with Mali at the African Cup of Nations. I could see with 18 months left on his contract, Brighton and Hove Albion saying, well, let's take that money right now because we don't have him anyway, and let's use that in this transfer window. They have about 90 million by all accounts to spend in this window, and they're well on their way to that, and I believe they're fully committed to doing that, to improving this squad. It's just that it's such a departure from what we were doing even 6 months ago. I'm so interested to know what is happening behind the scenes to arrive at this completely different way of doing things. And I'm not complaining about it either. I think this is the way to go. Bring in quality, proven, bona fide talent, and sprinkle it in with what we have to make what we have that little bit better. Right, here we go with the Holy Trinity, the 3 big reasons why Lucas Digne is a solid signing. Starting with an honorable mention, is that reported fee mid-ish 20s breathtaking? I don't think it is. You don't want to spend a fortune on your fullbacks, but you want and need quality. You need to upgrade on what we have, and that's kind of the range when you think that Matt Targett was about 16 million himself. But is that an outlandish figure? It feels to me like we've honestly swooped in and taken advantage of irreconcilable differences between player and manager, and that Everton wants to move on quickly because they could use that money now to help improve their squad. And just a little while ago, it felt like Chelsea was hardcore on Lucas Digne because they needed a short or long-term replacement for Ben Chilwell, which my fear was, well, that's going to drive the price up. Instead, it hasn't. And I also wonder, were Aston Villa able to go to Lucas Digne and his people and say, hey, by the way, you're going to be playing with Philippe Coutinho on that side of the field? Another honorable mention. If Ollie Watkins and at times Danny Ings can't take advantage of the delivery of Lucas Digne, then that's on them for not being ready or for not finishing because, oh my goodness, Dominic Calvert-Lewin feasted on what Lucas Digne served him time after time. I said already how much Philippe Coutinho could benefit Ollie Watkins as a striker. Well, now to have on that left-hand side the overlapping, overloading, and wand option of Lucas Digne to get on the end of, Aston Villa's strike force is going to hit pay dirt big time with somebody of that quality on that side of the field. And if they could just get the same on the right, oh my goodness. Another honorable mention is that Matt Targett now has a fight on his hands, and that is the best scenario for the entire squad. Targett was last year's Players' Player of the Year. The players choose this. He was better than, in their opinion, Emi Martinez, Ezri Konsa, Jack Grealish, and Ollie Watkins. That's incredible. And there is a player in there without question. But my feeling about Matt Targett has always been his biggest challenge is between his ears. He's his own worst enemy. And yes, he hasn't had continuity this year. It doesn't matter now. And it doesn't matter that he's the incumbent. Digne is starting. Digne is taking his place from the beginning. And in my opinion, that actually takes the pressure off of Matt Targett. Yes, he'll be desperate to get into games. He's going to have to now fight for it. He's going to now have to prove to the manager that the manager's made a mistake. Make the manager's job difficult. That is going to make him better. That is going to make Digne better. And that is going to improve the squad and training in general. Another honorable mention, and forgive me for having so many of these, but his game IQ is very, very good. And this is where the defensive side of the discussion comes into play, because it's one thing to be able to deliver a great ball. Before that, you have to know when to time your supporting runs. And he does that very well, because if you don't do that right and you get caught in possession, then you've left yourself exposed. He picks his moments very well. He is not a blinding quick player, but because he's intelligent, he thinks ahead and he gets into the right positions through clever anticipation. And that may be more valuable than pace at times. Now, I've watched a lot of the defensive compilation videos, and it's very interesting to me that the way he defends is, and his policy seems to be, we're going to close the problem off at the source. I'm going to close you down and block the ball from getting beyond you, or I'm going to put it into row Z, or I'm going to knock it out, or head it out, or just clear it away upfield. He doesn't seem to have this need to not just stop a player from progressing and then having to go and make a spectacular transitional ball. No. He's perfectly fine with just knocking the ball out, doing the safe thing, cutting the attack off at the source, and allowing his team to recover. And to me, that's game IQ and game management, because you have seen these players who think, well, I got to not only win the tackle, but then I also have to sidestep the man and play the perfect ball and create a transitional moment, which he's capable of. But it seems to me in so many of his highlights that he's perfectly happy of just snuffing it out. Stop it at the source, allow everybody to get in shape, and go from there. Number 3, It's a fresh start. And this is very similar to Philippe Coutinho at Barcelona because he was drifting. He wasn't getting into games. And maybe, that had something to do with his price tag versus what he was giving the team. We'll never know what happened inside those walls. But he was given a fresh start by a guy he used to play with who has had a magnificent start to his managerial career and who is revered as one of the best in his positions. A dynamic, charismatic kind of leader. Now take football out of the equation. Take Lucas Digne out of the equation. Imagine yourself for a minute. You're toiling away in your office. You're working as hard as you can, but you probably feel like you deserve a raise, a promotion. You're not being appreciated. You're not being valued. All of a sudden, the competition across the street at the other office identifies you and comes in. Dynamic, charismatic leader says, you're the person we want in our office. We're going to give you more responsibility, more money. We're going to try to push you up the company ladder and grow you as an individual. And I've identified you as the solution to our problem. How would you feel? Of course, that never happens to us, does it? That only seems to happen in football. But you get the point. We've got a guy here who was drifting. He was having problems. And all of a sudden, Steven Gerrard comes in and says, you're coming over here because I believe in you. It is a clean slate. It is a fresh start. And sometimes that's all players need. No past. Just a future. Number 2, he has been consistent. And it's not just consistent game to game consistent, but also from club to club to club consistent. And that is good news. Whether it was Roma to Lille to PSG to Barcelona, mid 40-ish in the appearances. And then he goes to Everton, he's around 130 games. And the assists ratio, so games to assists, has been pretty consistent throughout all of that time. So what we're asking for at Aston Villa is you don't need to be 8.5 out of 10 every single game. That'd be nice. But that means you'd be back at Barcelona. Be a solid 7 out of 10 every single game, week in and week out. And that's what we've not had. And if you can carry on with that games to assists ratio, then Lucas Digne is going to supply a lot of goals. And isn't it interesting that suddenly, after having a very good FA Cup tie against Manchester City, we've recalled Kane Kessler-Hayden from Swindon Town. He was exceptional in that game. And frankly, he is one of the young studs. He may be one of the best of the young crop of Villa players. Now, all of a sudden, he's back in our fold and he's going to be pushing Matt Cash. We have competition for minutes on both fullback positions, and that is exciting, and that will hopefully push us to consistency game to game and consistency in assist output or the creation of goals. And the number one reason why Lucas Digne is a solid signing, it's his technique. His technique is what we are paying for. And this is a master manipulator of the football in any different kind of circumstance. I'd never heard of Lucas Digne a couple of years ago, and I'm watching a game at Goodison where Everton is playing Watford. And he gets a ball in his own defensive third in the middle of the park. It just popped up to him. And he sends this incredible ball into the path of his teammate, and they go on and score from it. And when they showed the tight angle, you could see Digne looked up for a split second, and in that split second, he clocked the distance, the shape that he had to put on the ball, and the speed his teammate was traveling in order that he didn't have to break stride. And he played it on a dime. And I'm like, who is this guy? But that's not all. That's the long ball example. And that danger where you can open up a field all at once is one big dynamic that Villa should benefit from. But that's not all. Remember the game against Spurs? Ball is switched across to his side. He volleys it back across goal on a full volley. And they score from it. Most of the time, though, it's from the ground. Whether that's a set piece, a free kick like the one he took against Mourinho's Spurs, where they played that high line, Calvert-Lewin comes in and scores off the header, or just he beats a guy for pace by just that 1 yard. He just accelerates that little bit to give him the room. And then he uncoils and puts it into the perfect area for his strikers. This is what we are buying. Technique, the split second of seeing where it has to go and then delivering it at the decisive moment. That is World class, in my opinion, and that's why he's played so many times for France. The minute Steven Gerrard walked through the door, we knew he was going to require dynamic fullbacks that were going to support the front three of his system. And in Lucas Digne, I think they got that player, but I think they also got the player that can turn quick possession into counter-attacking transitional football, which Aston Villa was kind of sort of building through Dean Smith. You think about the players they brought in. Ollie Watkins is like that. Jacob Ramsey, certainly. Leon Bailey, transitional player. Even McGinn to a degree, but now they have a guy with the perfect example, that ball he played against Watford for Everton on a dime, 60-yard ball. And Aston Villa as a group is going to have to learn how to play with that weapon so that they are prepared for those kind of moments. And now all they really need is one more to support that type of play. And that's the 6, because the 6 allows the fullbacks to get forward and support the attack without leaving the 2 center backs exposed or isolated. Oh, these are exciting times. It's coming together. Well, it's official. Barcelona is Aston Villa's feeder club. But seriously, with the additions of Coutinho and Digne, you have to say that Villa have drastically upgraded the left side of the park. And I guess the only question is, will one or both of them feature against Manchester United this weekend? We shall see. But it feels like the left to right balance is getting closer in this club. Now it's just a matter of the front to back balance being shored up, and that is going to require the elite number 6 that Steven Gerrard is shopping for in this window. And if he gets it, it'll be the greatest January transfer window in the history of this football club. Also, it appears to be the end of the line for Anwar El Ghazi at our beloved club. What a servant, scoring more goals than anybody else during that time, including one of the greatest in my life, the 1-0 in the playoff final. He will fit that system much better than I think he fits the one right now at Villa. And for Anwar El Ghazi, I wish nothing but success, health, happiness, and thank you. And thank you for watching. As always, up the mighty Villa.